Chapter 29. Devon's brother and sister hadn't been able to make it for the wedding, but they made it home for Thanksgiving, so Devon and I spent the holiday with his family. It didn't really matter, because Payson had had to work the day before and Rain had to work on Thanksgiving Day, so my family was celebrating the holiday on Friday. It made things easy for Devon and me. Not really knowing how things worked with his family, I decided that my best bet would be to treat his mom and sister the same way I would treat mine. I headed over to his parents' house as soon as I had showered and dressed, sending Devon a message to join us when he got through feeding the animals. Since today was a holiday, he wasn't going to put in a full day's work, but the animals still had to be fed. I felt guilty for keeping Gavin away from his family and told him so as we got into the car to go to the Wilsons. "I'm sorry you can't spend today with your family. I feel guilty from keeping you away so you can stay with me." "Don't," he said, curt but not unkind. "I wouldn't be spending the holiday with them even if I assigned to you. At least I'm spending the holiday with someone." "I'm still sorry, just for a different reason now." I looked at him for a second before starting the car and pulling out of the driveway. "Don't be. Mine was never much of a family. I've found a much better, closer family here, as an enforcer than I ever had with mine. If I weren't with you, I would probably go to the Anikitos' house, with the rest of the enforcers who have no family in the area. Either way, I'm with people who are family to me." I shot him a quick smile before turning my attention back to the road. "Thanks, I've started thinking of you like you're a part of the family too." I parked in front of the Wilsons' house and together, we made our way to the door. Devon's mother, Amber, looked surprised when she opened the door. "Nicki, what are you doing here so early?" she asked. She glanced at Gavin but didn't say anything more as she ushered us inside and closed the door. "I'm here to help." I tipped my head in Gavin's direction. "Me and my shadow." "You don't have to do that." "Yeah, I do. I'd help my mom cook for us all. I can do no less for you. Just tell me what to do and you've got another pair of hands." "Two," Gavin said. "If you insist," she sighed, threw up her hands and led us through the house to the kitchen. There was a woman already working when we got there and Amber made introductions. "Amy, I don't think you've met Devon's new wife and mate, Nicki." She turned to me. "Nicki, this is my daughter Amy." I smiled. "Nice to meet you." I'd offered to shake hands but I haven't washed mine yet. I held them up. She smiled back. "Nice to meet you too. I'll take a rain check." She motioned at my hands, then glanced at Gavin. "This is Gavin, he's my shadow," I said. She scowled. "An old friend of mine has been causing problems. He was banished several months ago, but we've discovered that he's been back in town recently and Devon's worried, so I get a protection detail." Amy looked surprised. Apparently, Amber hadn't been sharing what had been going on around here. "Is this why Devon's the Theron now?" she asked. "Partly." I went to the sink and washed my hands. Gavin followed suit. "All right, tell me what needs to be done. I'm here to help." "Me too," Gavin said. "You don't have to stay in here," Amber said to Gavin. "Why don't you go join the men in the living room?" "I'm sorry, ma'am." He shook his head. "I can't protect Nicki from there, and I might as well help while I'm here." "He's actually a pretty good cook," I said. "He's helped me out some at home." Amber shrugged, giving up. "All right." She got the two of us started on washing and cutting vegetables for different dishes, and we all talked while we cooked. We'd been working for a couple of hours when I heard the front door open and caught a hint of Devon's smoky scent. I wasn't surprised when he came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my middle, resting his hands on my belly. "How are you feeling this morning, baby?" he asked. I turned my head and kissed his cheek. "I'm good." "How's your stomach?" "Fine." He looked up. "Hey sis, how are you doing?" His arms were still wrapped around me, his face beside mine. She stood there a moment, watching the two of us before answering. "Oh, I'm great. Congratulations, by the way." "Thanks," he said. I could feel him grinning where his face was pressed close to mine. "Don't work too hard and remember, no lifting." He kissed my cheek before pulling away. He kissed his mom, then turned to Gavin, looked at what he was in the middle of, and said, "Come see me when you have a minute." Gavin nodded and continued slicing potatoes. I knew Devon wanted a report from Gavin, if anything had happened, how I had been this morning, that kind of thing. I'd listened in on enough that I knew what would be said. I didn't need to hear it again. I watched Devon leave, then turned back to the counter where I was grating cheese. I saw the curious look on Amy's face, and I was surprised when she didn't ask. "What is it?" I asked instead. "What?" Amy said. "You're curious about something. What is it?" I've never seen Devon act that way. He's always been polite but distant, never touching more than needed. It's surprising. She looked down at the yams she was working on peeling. "Mom said you shifted him." I didn't do it alone, but yeah, I did. I waited, knowing there had to be more to it. "Well, when Mom told me that he was marrying the girl who shifted him, I kind of assumed," she trailed off and her face turned red. "You assumed he was marrying me because I shifted him, and he was grateful." I finished for her, saying it the only way I knew how, bluntly. "Well, yeah. I know better now. The difference in him is amazing." She stared unseeing at the door he'd disappeared through for a moment before turning back to me. "Why did he tell you no lifting?" I rolled my eyes. "Because he's overprotective." She scowled and looked confused. "I don't blame him, not one bit. You shouldn't be lifting anything," Gavin said, dropping the last of the sliced potatoes into the bowl of water. He washed his knife and followed Devon out of the room. Amy's look of confusion only intensified. "I'm pregnant and he acts like I'm made of glass and will shatter at the slightest bump." I rolled my eyes again. "Ah, I understand now. Sloan was the same way with my first pregnancy. Enjoy it while it lasts. By the time you get to the third one, they realize you can still do pretty much whatever you want. Alexis has told him there's no reason I can't do anything I feel up to, but he still won't let me do some things, insists on helping me or having my shadow help. I don't really mind though, sometimes it gets on my nerves." "Alexis?" "Alexis Jeffries, the Harmonia, and our pack healer. Dev said you went to school with her." "Allie?" Amy said. "Yes, Allie." Amber confirmed from where she was putting the dressing together, standing at the counter with her back to us. "I haven't seen her in so long," Amy's voice turned wistful. "I knew she was a healer, but Harmonia too? Wow." "I'm sure she'd love to see you," I said. "I don't know where I'd be without her. She taught me how to call animal forms and believed me when I told her I could sense Devon's wolf. I couldn't have shifted him without her either." "Wow." She looked surprised. "She's done really well for herself." I finished with the green beans and set them to one side to wait until it was time to put them in the oven. "What now, Amber?" She looked around the room. "Nothing. Everything we can do now is done. Go sit down with that new husband of yours." She gave me a knowing smile. I glanced around the room myself, not wanting to leave if anything still needed to be done, but I didn't find anything. "All right, but call me when you have something for me to do." She nodded and I headed for the family room where the men were gathered. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching them before they noticed me. Devon, Sean, and another man sat together on the sofa, while Gavin sat in a nearby chair. I glanced around, knowing there should be at least one more man, but I didn't see him. Looking back at the three on the couch, I could see the resemblance in the third man. Not to the men he shared the seat with, but to one of the women I'd left in the kitchen. This had to be Jason. He looked like a younger, masculine version of his mother. Gavin noticed me first, smiling when he caught sight of me. The movement made Devon turn. Hey baby, come sit down for a little while. I don't like you on your feet all day. I stepped into the room, going the long way around the room to stay out from between the other men and the film they were watching on the screen as I headed for a recliner. Not there, Devon said. When I turned to look at him, he crooked one finger. Sean paused the film as I moved to stand in front of Devon. There's no room for me here. I looked down at him. Sure there is. Devon hooked an arm around my waist and pulled me into his lap. Jace, I'd like you to meet my wife, Nicki. Nicki, my brother. I felt like an idiot as I sat on Devon's lap and held out my hand to the man sitting next to him. Nice to meet you. He grinned, a smile that resembled Devon's. He looked at my hand. Do you think a handshake is really going to do it? I couldn't help grinning back as I leaned over to hug him. He hugged me back, but didn't let me go as easily as I expected. He wasn't grabby or creepy. He just didn't let me pull back. A wave of apprehension washed through me. What was going on here? Enough, Jace. She doesn't know you or that you're just trying to get to me. Jason immediately let me go. Sorry, he mumbled. I pulled away and moved back to lean against Devon as his arms came up around me. I don't mind games and teasing, I just want to be in on it. Plus, with Brandon and everything else, things have been a bit tense lately. Devon finished. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause problems. I was just trying to have a little fun, Jason said. I didn't know how to react. I knew Jason and Devon weren't close, that their family didn't function like mine. He's harmless. He just likes to pick at me, try to get a rise out of me. He was trying to make me jealous. Devon sent through our mental connection. I guess it's too bad for him that we're sure of each other, isn't it? He's skeptical of the connection between mates. He's seen our parents, but he's never felt it himself. He's trying to test it. Do you mind if I have some fun with him? I didn't want to cause problems between the two of them, but now that I knew what was going on, I could get into it. Go for it. I know where your heart lies. I kissed his cheek and stood. I'll be right back. I headed for the restroom. I found I had to pee a lot more often than normal, but I didn't really mind, especially now that it gave me an opportunity to mess with Jason. When I got back to the living room, I passed Devon on the couch and without ceremony sat in Jason's lap, curling against him until I could lay my head on his shoulder. It wasn't easy since he was several inches shorter than Devon, but I managed. Jason pulled his hands up and held them near his shoulders, as though not wanting to get caught touching something he shouldn't. I batted my eyes at him several times, enjoying the dumbfounded look on his face. Come on, babe, Devon laughed and patted his own lap. Give him a break. You've gotten your revenge. I laughed as I got up and moved to Devon's lap, noticing the new man in the room for the first time. See, Jason, I can play when I know what's going on. He shook his head and laughed. I deserved it. You did. Remember to let me in on it in the future, and don't doubt that there will be a future. Devon and I are mated. I told him, leaving no doubt that I was in the family permanently and he'd better get used to it, without being quite that blunt. Nicki, this is Sloan, Amy's husband. Devon motioned to the new man in the room. He was sitting in the recliner I'd been headed for earlier. Sloan, as I'm sure you heard, this is my mate and wife, Nicki. Nice to meet you. I stayed where I was on Devon's lap, his hands resting lightly on my hips. You too, Sloan said. I take it I missed something while I was laying the girls down? His dark eyes were full of laughter. You did. I didn't even try to explain what he'd missed. I was an ass and I deserved it, Jason said, improving my opinion of him by admitting he'd been wrong in the first place. Amber and Amy joined us, sitting on the other sofa in the room. There's plenty of room, you don't have to share a seat, dear. Amber patted the cushion beside her. She's good where she is, Mom. We're good just like this, Devon told her. Before she could protest, a door I hadn't paid any attention to opened, and I realized it led outside. Grammy let herself in. Well, it looks like I'm the last one to get here. What did I miss? She looked around the room. Not much, just Nicki sitting on Jason's lap, Sean said, as if it happened every day. I felt several pair of eyes on me. I shrugged. He deserved it. I left it at that. If someone else wanted to explain, it was up to them. We visited for a while before Amy and Amber headed for the kitchen again, insisting that I stay. They only had a couple of things to do, and I didn't need to bother. Once they left, Jason offered to fix drinks for everyone. He took orders, mostly mixed drinks but beer for Devon and Gavin. I asked for iced tea if there was any. Mom knows what you drink. She'll have some tea for you, Devon said. Are you sure? The bar's pretty well stocked. I can fix whatever you like, Jason offered. I was amazed again that Devon's brother and sister hadn't already been told. No thanks, I'm off alcohol for a while. I didn't want to draw the amount of attention that a big announcement always made, so I didn't say why. You dolt, don't you know she's pregnant? Grammy didn't hold anything back. It was one of the things I liked about her. Jason's eyes widened as he realized all the implications, not just now, but his actions earlier as well. His face colored. Tea it is, he said, and went to get the drinks. It was a pleasant day, not the boisterous, loud event that my family gatherings were, but still I had a great time. I had been afraid that I would feel out of place, as if I was an unwelcome outsider, but I didn't. Devon's family, now my family, were very accepting, and thought it would take me some time to get used to the different way his family functioned. I felt like we could have a good relationship. As Devon and I got ready to leave that evening, I PC'd numbers information with Amy and Jason. I got the impression that they both wanted to have a better relationship with their brother in the future than they'd had for the last 10 years. I would do everything I could to help, but I didn't want to upset Devon in the process. I wasn't quite sure how to proceed. I gave them my number and told them to feel free to call. I'd be happy to hear from them. When and if they did, I'd see how Devon wanted to proceed. I suspected that his feelings of inferiority from not being able to shift had been part of the rift with his siblings. Maybe we could fix some of that now.